Hello, friends, and welcome back to this week's episode. I am so excited to share part two of my conversation with the man, the legend, Dr. Rob Orman. If you missed our part one conversation, go ahead and stop and go back and listen to that. You're not going to want to miss that conversation. We talk about his recent role as a technical advisor for the pit, and it really lays the groundwork for today's conversation. So enjoy part two of my conversation with Dr. Rob Orman, and I'm really happy you're here listening to this conversation. Thanks for being part of the Heartline community. Enjoy. I guess another question quickly before we get into your book is, do you think the job got harder in your 20 years? Do you think emergency medicine changed?
Yes, I think it changed profoundly,
Yeah.
and I think that it was changing. So I started internship in '95, and paper charts, getting your labs in the computer was a new thing, and the only way we did it was because one of our attendings was computer savvy and was able to do that, and your notes would be a couple sentences,
Mhm.
really, and it wasn't a ton of oversight. You kept yourself accountable. There were M&Ms, let me tell you that. And now it's just quite different. There's a lot of corporate involvement in medicine. There's a lot more C-suite oversight and I would say edicts from on high, which frustrate docs. Since COVID, attitudes of patients have changed. That is one thing I hear. I work with docs in many different specialties. And to a person, it is things are so different since COVID. How patients act, how people talk, how people interact with me. And I think that it can be harder to find joy in the practice of medicine than it used to. I think it maybe came in big places and was natural before. Now, I think you've really got to be intentional about finding it. And I don't know that people, when they get into doctoring, really think about that, "Oh, I'd like this to be joyous." I think you think like, "Oh, here's this calling, here's this profession, here's this thing. I know it's hard." But there's a lot of joy in medicine. But where do you find it? How do you find it? And I know that's a lot of the work that you and I do is slowing down and being intentional about either creating it or noticing it. So back to your original question, yes, I think medicine is harder now than it used to be, or emergency medicine.
Yeah. I'm cognizant that maybe some of my residents might listen to this. And I certainly try on this podcast to come with a healthy dose of optimism and appreciative inquiry. So, what I'd say is, yes, it is harder. And I saw it change. I've been out of residency 10 years. There have been changes. And I also think that there are more people like you and I available. Coaching is more accessible than ever before. And the principles of coaching are more accessible. And to give you a small example, I need to really think and write about this more, but I'm trying to build a coaching informed residency. And so a small example of that is we started a residency orientation yesterday, and I had them take out a piece of paper and write down what do they want out of this orientation, and think about okay, I know I have to get signed off on central lines by the end and do that well, which is important, but also think about relationships and how you want to relate to the people in your class and to your faculty. And so I had them write that and then do it so that they folded it and put their name, and I'm going to give it to them at the end of orientation. And so those are small things. And then the other thing I'm doing is I got a kintsugi vase.
Yeah.
And if there's a listener out there, I would love if there was a kintsugi vase made by a doctor. I have a friend that does pottery, but she doesn't do kintsugi. I'm going to take this vase and I'm going to take it to every conference and let people drop in things that they need to let go. And just have it as a physical reminder that they can put something in there and let it go.
Oh, I love that. As you're talking about a coaching informed residency, it's so easy to go through the motions, especially when the curriculum is laid out before you.
Yep.
And I heard this great expression a long time ago. Actually, two of them. One is, are you going to work in your job or are you going to work on your job? And if you're working in it, punch in the clock.
Hmm.
If you're going to work on it, then you are trying to create the career that you want, that feels concordant with who you are as a human being. And a friend, Jamie Hope, just gave me the best metaphor for this. It is, do you rent your career or do you own your career? And a renter, it's funny when she asked me that, which one do you take better care of? I said, oh, rental, like a rental car. I don't want to get the fine. She said, no, just,
Right.
besides that, oh, when you own something, you are going to maintain it. You are going to make sure it is top notch. It is able to withstand the storm. When you rent it, I'm just gonna kind of use this thing and give it back and whatever. I don't care. And I think that what you're talking about is a coaching informed residency. Is what that means is, how do I take ownership of what my career looks like from day one?
This is so good. I might have to assign this to my residents to listen to. And the other thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to write this down after the recording, is one of our core values is leadership. And so I'm reading a leadership quote to start conference every week. And I'm totally going to use that rent or own quote. I want our listeners to hear
Yeah.
you read your favorite passage or the passage you feel like sharing today. I understand that sometimes there's a lot of parts you may really love out of your book. There's a lot of good stuff, but
Yeah.
which passage would you like to share with us today?
I was like, oh, should I read that Jamie Hope one? That whole thing about how she unburnt herself by owning her career was awesome. And that thing, oh, should I read it? But you know what? I just told that story. Yeah, I'm doing the audiobook right now. I'm doing the listening. I'm listening and thinking, oh man, you write this book and think, oh, I love all the chapters. I love all the things. So I'm going to read this one. This is one of my favorite stories from the book. And when people write back after they've read it, I think that particular story, that particular mindset was my favorite from the book.
Mm,
And this comes from a chapter on the drama triangle. And the drama triangle, it was developed in the 60s by a psychologist to describe interpersonal dynamics. And we can
yep.
be the hero, we can be the villain, we can be the victim. And you think, wow, everybody wants to be the hero. No, you actually don't want to be any. Because
Correct.
once you are one role, then the other roles are created and they're all dependent on each other. You want to
Yeah.
be none of them. You want to be outside of it. And you want to be, because if you are in the triangle, you are judging. You are going to be judging. What you want to be is discerning. You want to be able to discern and take a half step back to have a little more equanimity. And so at the end of this chapter, tell a story. How long of a passage should I just say?
Keep it under 5 minutes.
All right. So I'm just going to read and we'll see what comes of it. You have no obligation for someone else's story to become your own. I saw this play out one late night in the ED when I had consulted a gynecologist to see a young woman with a pelvic mass and a belly full of blood. She needed to go to the operating room as soon as possible. I had started a transfusion and we were moving to get her to surgery. The gynecologist, a straight shooter who always tried to do the right thing but never took grief from anyone, entered the room. I was sitting outside working on the patient's chart and orders when I overheard the patient's husband yell at the doctor. How dare you tell me what my wife needs? Why do you think you know so much? Why should I even listen to you? It was bizarre. And he was clearly afraid, seeing his wife pale, blood dripping into her arm. He was creating a drama triangle vortex. I will never forget what happened next. There was a long, silent pause, and all I could hear was the din of background chatter in the rest of the department. Then, in a calm voice, as if she were ordering dinner off a menu, the gynecologist said, Sir, I am not the author of your story, nor am I the source of your distress. How would you like to proceed? In 60 seconds, the patient, family, and gynecologist were on their way to the operating room. That was Full Metal Badass, declining the invitation and refusing to enter the triangle. I later asked her what she'd been thinking in that room. It was pure cognitive empathy, she said. I asked myself, where is this guy coming from? He's clearly freaking out, and anger and fear often get confused. This was his way of telling me he was afraid. I let him get it out of his system and threw a bucket of figurative ice water on the hostility. There was also compassion. That woman was on the fast track to dying and needed to be in the operating room. I wanted her to survive, and I knew her husband did too. The best way to make that happen was to help him get out of his own way. Compassion is like the triangle antidote, caring without attachment.
Oh, that is such a master class. And it takes me to my favorite video clip that I keep sending people. And I sent to my leadership team is it's the same idea of the drama triangle, the hero, victim, villain. And you really can use that every time you're being an asshole, you're doing one of those three things. So Brene Brown talked about it in her book, A Strong Ground. And so I do this thing now on shifts where I take a Post-it note and I draw a line. I also have it in my office. And below the line, you're being the victim, villain, or the hero. Above the line, you're coaching, collaborating, or challenging constructively. And so that's always the challenge of how do you stay above the line? But like you coming full circle, it starts with awareness. It starts with awareness that, and we can all think back to so many times, the meeting after the meeting, when you are chatting with somebody like, oh yeah, so-and-so didn't pull their weight on this. They're so incompetent. They're blah, blah, blah. In that moment, what would you be? The villain when you're gossiping? A bit of victim too. They're kind of mixed in when you're gossiping. But we do it so, so much. I agree. The drama triangle is like, honestly, in some ways, there's so many tools with coaching where you're like, if you just follow this one, but that's why you still need the coach, because if it
Yeah.
was that easy, if it was just reading the book, then, I mean, there's been so many great books written, like healthcare would, and the world be a lot more functional. But that is honestly like my favorite one that I keep going back to. And so if anybody wants a really good laugh, Google Brene Brown, Kara Swisher, and Drama Triangle or something like that.
I have not seen it. Have not seen it. We'll check it out.
Oh gosh. Okay. So we've covered a lot of ground. I want to start the wind down with some of our rapid fires. So besides obviously your amazing book, what's one other book that's changed your life or the way you lead?
Just one. Okay.
Just then one or two. It's like the rapid fire.
I'm going to say a combination of Man's Search for Meaning
Mm.
and Extreme Ownership. So I don't think you could get more disparate from Jocko Willink and Viktor Frankl, but Man's Search for Meaning, searching for purpose. Extreme Ownership, taking accountability without self-flagellation.
I love it. Those are two must reads. All right. What's a quote or mantra you return to when things get tough? And I know you work with Scott Weingart, and he wrote a paper that a lot of people have probably read about, like coming up with a word, like before a procedure, or if you're stressed, like using this word or this phrase. Did you ever use that in clinical practice?
Absolutely. I tried a bunch of different
Wow.
words and different phrases. I mean, Scott and I have been partners for so long, and, and thinking, okay, I'm going to have this. And, I tried level down, level up, slow it down. None of that worked. The only thing that worked, and I still use it to this day, and my kids use it too, is good. I'm not a really kind of Jocko-ish guy of that uber machismo, but that particular reframing just encapsulates Stoic philosophy, encapsulates a can-do spirit better than anything else. And it is when things are hard, when you feel down, when it's like things aren't going your way, you say, good, I can do this. Let's do this. And he has this 2-minute video on YouTube that I would listen to going into work. And he's talking about this officer that reported to him and say, didn't get the gear you wanted. Good. Didn't get this what you wanted? Good. This thing happened? Good. You learned. You'll improve. You'll train more. And like when you are down, when you feel like you can't get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack. And so in the ED, I would use that as kind of, there's 5 ambulances coming in, and I'm overwhelmed. And how do I reset? I say, good. You're going to
Mhm.
get better from this, and you can do this. And there was something about that association of that word with listening to that video and kind of that mindset and that feeling, and I had to train it outside of the shift that just centered me and changed my mental orientation from, "Oh, I'm drowning," to, "Oh, I'll get through this. I'll be better for it."
Yeah, that's great. So that's a great action for the listeners. If you don't have a word or a phrase, keep experimenting it and trying it in different domains. It does take a lot of training your brain to make that something that you'll really fall back on. Even though I've written a book about Heartline, have a tattoo, have taught myself that the Heartline is on my palm,
Yeah.
there's still moments it's hard to access that. So again, like a good coaching thing is, oh, it's still hard. Oh, welcome to being human. You have a brain? Yeah, like this is hard work. That's what it is.
Oh, can I build on what you just said there?
Yes.
I went to high school with a guy who I'm not sure if he was a Green Beret or ended up in Delta Force or something. It was very high level special forces. And I ran into him and I was describing this event to him. He says, "Oh, sounds like you were overtaken by events of the day." I said, "Oh, and you may know that from the military." I don't know if that's a phrase from the military. I was overtaken by events. And I said, "Oh, I can name what's happened. I'm overtaken by events. Okay, how do I reset?" And just having that name, that phrase. So I do sometimes use that of, I'm overtaken. I need to step back and slow down and just reset and get out of this mired swamp. So that is a phrase that just came up when you started talking about that story. But I love that. It's so descriptive of task saturation or whatever. But alas,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it comes back to that word that you were talking about of discernment, because I think a lot of us went through residency and were told that no matter what happens, you must figure it out. And then you practice as an attending for a while and you actually realize there are just some impossible situations. And that was crap, that you're told that there's always an answer. There's not. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes the answer is someone will die, or some people today will not have as good of an outcome as they potentially could have. And that is the reality of emergency medicine and triaging. And it's not that you're going to put on a superhero cape and everyone's going to have a door to dock time in less than 5 minutes and have every other metric that some people want. And you're going to have to rob Peter to pay Paul. And like the moment I started to realize that, there's times you get an email about a sepsis metric or whatever it is, and it's not that I'm not accountable for it. That's the discernment. It's like, okay, I see that feedback. It is factual and it's not actionable.
factual, not actionable. Did you make that up? That's a great phrase.
I just came up with it just now, but it's like,
Yeah.
that is true. And the discernment here is, while I agree, I would like it to be different, I don't have a way that it could have. And it takes a long time to develop that discernment.
I'm gonna give you a Weingart phrase that he taught me that he learned from someone else, but I wish it wasn't this way, but it is this way.
Let's move forward. Ooh, that's a good reset. I love that. That's a great one with patients too. Let's move forward. Let's figure out a way to address your concern, the pain that you're feeling. Okay, this last question, I promise. If you could redesign one part of medical school or residency, you are king, dean,
Yeah.
massive powers, what would you change?
It's funny, actually, I just asked a podcast guest this. Ron Epstein was the author of Attending, which was a very influential book for me, and he's one of the original researchers of mindfulness in medicine and dealing with conflict. I mean, just a real OG. And I asked him this question. He said, "Oh, I would teach them how to listen. I would teach
Mm.
students how to listen." And that would be my answer, but I can't take his answer. And so I think that the answer for this is probably never, "Oh, you need to learn more stuff. You need to learn about CHF better." It's never the stuff. It's
Yeah.
how do you navigate the non-clinical aspects of medicine? How do you be a better doctor? How do you be a better human being? And I'm just thinking through this. I think that younger doctors now are actually better than our generation at boundaries.
Yeah.
Ah, that was that ending of The Pit where the medical student left when they shut down the computer, says, "I don't know why you guys are staying." I think, "Oh, wow, she set up boundaries." Now, I didn't actually agree with her leaving because the whole place was exploding. And I thought, well, this is the one time you do stay because then you learn something new. Alas. So I don't think they need that. And this is for the current generation.
Yeah, I think so. If we could change medical education right now.
Yeah. Okay. So there's this interesting thing that's happening with AI where I think a lot of young doctors think that can be their peripheral brain or actually
Yeah.
their brain.
I can't wait to hear what you're going to say about this because this is like a front of mind problem for me right now.
Yeah. And I think some of that comes from the speed at which they are consuming information and their mind works. And some of it is just a generational thing of, oh, the answer's there. Why do I need to learn that? It seems like wasted effort. Back to your previous question, and this is going to sound completely bonkers. I would teach a course on meditation. That
Mhm.
would be the fundamental skill. Now, you asked me before, does someone have to meditate to have awareness? No, just build in skills awareness. Teach you 3 skills of how to do that in the moment, how to do it with patience, how to reset. But for you as a human being and the quality of your practice and the quality of your life and the ability to slow down and cogitate and critically think, that particular tool of building that mental skill of self-reflection and slowing down will pay dividends in every aspect of your life, especially in your clinical career of how do I be circumspect with this? Let me really think through this. Think, slow down and think. So I would use that as the fundamental skill or the fundamental tool to be able to slow down, to be able to think, to also not feel so rushed and out there and the need to not be bored, right? Kind of all of these things kind of tie into them. I don't know. How's that sit with you?
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating. If I have one regret from when I went through medical school is they actually offered a meditation program that was 6 weeks, but it was like after hours, it was like on
Yeah.
evenings. And I didn't live close to campus and I decided not to do it. And I wish I had that skill set earlier. It's exactly what you said. It's not that I would have memorized anything ACLS faster, some other facts. It's the way we think. And I think that's also, the refreshing part about going through coach training as a physician. Since I'm still seeing patients, there are times when I'm really struggling with somebody that I pull out the coaching toolbox.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I learned how to listen better. I mean, you have to, like, that's a big part of being a coach. And so, I try to access, maybe that's a goal for me after this conversation, to access more of that coaching toolbox in the moment on shifts with patients. Because when you think about it at the end of the day, a lot of what we do with emergency medicine is trying to coach our patients to take the medicines we're going to prescribe, to go to the follow up that they're going to hopefully go to. You can use coaching tools during shifts.
Oh, yeah. Right? Every coaching client, I would imagine, says, "Oh, I took what you did with me with
Mhm.
inquiry." Coaching is all inquiry of, "Oh,
Yep.
tell me more." Okay, let's build on that. And pulling the answer out of the person. And another great book, I don't know if you read The Advice Trap. The Advice Trap, I love it. I mean, you do give advice as a clinician. That's why you're there. You're you're giving your expertise, but in life, we are so quick to give advice, but most of our advice is probably bad advice because we're not the person we're giving the advice to. And which is why, to your point, inquiry and coaching, people think of coaching as, oh, they're going to tell me what to do. No, it's actually going to give you the space to hear yourself and think through your problems and give you the structure and accountability to put them into action.
Well, this has been honestly a joy. We talked about joy today as well. This has been just such a soulful conversation. One I will go back and listen to anytime I need a little coaching from Dr. Rob Orman. How can our listeners get a copy of your book, get your newsletter, connect with
Yeah.
you, get coached? Or, also if they're aware of somebody that would benefit, maybe they're aware of a colleague that's kind of on the line, they're about to go in the penalty box
Yeah.
and they want to connect with you or get that person connected.
All my stuff is at Rob Orman, my name, roborman.com. And book is wherever you buy books, Amazon or whatever. It's Supranormal. I think that's a real word. Supranormal, Field Guide for the Impossible Job.
Someday I'll learn how to use my camera here. I absolutely love it. And it's also a very concise book. You really respect the readers and their time. And as a fellow writer, I think you really nailed the brevity and also giving enough meat on the bone. So hats off to you. I'm just so grateful for your wisdom that you share with our people. And I agree, our people are the best. I love our patients, but I also really love the people in healthcare.
Oh, so agreed. And thank you. Thank you for that sentiment and reflection. That means a lot.
All right. Until next time, follow your heart line.